Welcome, everyone. We're so thrilled to have you all here.
It's
Oh,
really good.
Cynthia with the palm trees in the background.
Alrighty, ladies and gents. It's really cool to see everyone here for the Rise and Grind slash NENA Federation meeting. We're going to start off today with the Rise and Grind portion. And in general, here is the framework for today. First, we're just going to engage in a little bit of networking for about 5 to 10 minutes. Just, we've been doing it a little bit, but we're going to chit chat for 5 to 10 just to see where we're at and to center us for the conversation that we're going to have for the Rise and Grind. Then the Rise and Grind will span about 40 minutes ish, probably till 11 o'clock. Then our esteemed guests, Melanie and Carla, who are here, they will peace out and then we'll continue with the meeting. I just like to say that the meeting will be recorded. What is not recorded are the networking rounds. So when we go into these little networking rounds, all the recording will stop. But once we come back into the breakout rooms, that's when the recording will commence. Maria, how are you doing this morning? You're looking very festive in your red. I love it.
No, I've been wearing red and green all week, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, all
I'm
good,
not
apart from it being very frigid here in Canada, but having a good time. It's last week of classes this week, exams start next week. So yeah, crazy, crazy time. Just come off the back of a strike. Not for us, but our part-timers. So yeah, things are fun. But yeah, loving it, loving it. Still want to get up in the morning, so I'm good.
very good. So networking rounds, we're going to do two of these things. Round one, we're going to spin you into a room of about four people. And the prompt that we're going to have you discuss is what's been the best part about your week thus far? We've all had a rough week from many, many reasons. Not an easy time of year, uh, but it's always good to be, focusing on the positive, and that'll help to kind of tie into our conversation today. So we're going to put you into rooms with about four people, and the prompt is going to be, what has been the best part about your week thus far? And maybe do a few little introductions first if you don't already know each other, and then continue with the conversation. That will last for about 4 minutes. Then we'll come out, we'll do one more prompt, and then we will continue with the rise and grind. So, Sid, on your mark, get set, go. Anywho, welcome back. Hope the little networking rounds were good. And they were meant, as a way to connect us to one another on this chilly or warm Friday morning, afternoon. I know we're coming from various geographic locales. And now I'd like to pivot to the starring aspect of the show, our rise and grind with Carla Chin and Melanie Peel. Both of these professionals are here to shed some light and expertise on managing mental health in an academic setting. Carla is an organizational psychologist who works in the Philly area, and she's going to bring her expertise from that perspective. Melanie is a psychotherapist, so she's going to bring some expertise from her vantage point. And I think before we get into this, and I said this during our prep call, which happened, 15 minutes before we were chatting, uh, that fundamentally I would like to learn from today's session is what are the key mental health challenges that we're facing in the classroom? And are they real? Are they not? What's a legitimate mental health concern? And then take it from the angle of ourselves as professors, as instructors. What is our responsibility? How far should we go in managing this situation? I know on one side, we may really want to go far to help students, but then on the other side, it could be tramps and on, hey, wait. that's not my business, and students may get, offended or whatnot if we get too pushy or in the way. And to step back just another millisecond, when I was working on designing these sessions with Maureen for the year, even though we've done sessions on student mental health in the past, I think this is a topic that is worth revisiting again and again. It's a challenge that we all struggle with. And I can say, myself personally, there's good days, good weeks, good seasons, bad seasons. And I personally think that the more that we can see each other as individuals, we can really help to go a long way in creating engaged and supportive learning communities. Because fundamentally, I think the classroom experience is about community. And we do have to acknowledge the well-being. But how we do it, I think there's a lot of gray areas and a lot of nuance. And it's these finer points that I hope that we can shed some light on today. So before we start again, I'd like us to unmute our um, cameras and just give Carla and Melanie a big round of applause, like a big whoop, whoop, whoop. Okay. So really quick, Carla, Melanie, quick snapshot of who you are and where you're from, just to set a little bit of context for us. And then we'll get into the substantive meat of the conversation. Sound good. So who is more awake, Melanie or Carla? Melanie, you've been up for a while.
I
Carla,
have.
you're on our time. Melanie, why don't we start
I'm
with you,
happy to
just for
start.
fun?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's the afternoon here where I am. I'm Melanie Peel. I'm a psychotherapist in private practice. I live in Scotland in the United Kingdom. Obviously, you can tell by my accent, I'm from the United States originally. Um, I was a sociologist, including working in academia as an instructor and later as a researcher for about 20 years before I became a psychotherapist. Um, and I think that's everything you asked. Where we're from, what our role is. So that's me.
All right, Carla.
All right, thank you. Let's start on a human level. I actually am originally from Toronto, currently live in New Jersey with two girls and my husband. Still waiting for the day when I can move back to Toronto, so we'll see.
Nice.
But, but my background, as Michael mentioned, is in organizational psychology. So my work as a consultant focuses on the systems lens of how to improve and impact well-being, whether it's for students, staff, workers. We work with a lot of nonprofit organizations in the Philly area, as well as institutions and universities. So have a diverse range of experience. And I realize they're all people. And so regardless of environment, there's similarities, commonalities, of course, but also differences. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Cool. So let's rock and roll. I love to improvise a little bit, but I'm not going to go too far off script. I'd like to know, in terms of mental health issues, are we dealing with more garden variety stuff or more of the extreme issues? And how do they manifest themselves? By garden variety stuff, and by the way, if I use the wrong language, please correct me. But I'm talking about just general, maybe stress and anxiety and low grade depression that's not super duper serious. I'll call that garden variety. Then I'll call more serious stuff, serious depression, serious anxiety, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, some other, more extreme issues. So I guess from both of your vantage points, what do you see as like key pressure points out there in the educational system?
Hmm. I hear people mostly talking about really it's kind of all of the above. I think with
Okay.
this current generation and the influence of both COVID and in this country lockdown, but the pandemic and social media and the rise of interest in and identification with mental health diagnoses, we are running into a lot more self-labeling and or people seeking care. And so I think from a lot of educators' perspectives, they feel like all of a sudden they're getting inundated with kids who are saying, well, I have this, I have that, I can't do this, I can't do that. And it feels like it's a huge increase. And in some ways, I think it is an increase, but I don't know if it's an increase of it actually existing. I think it's an increase of awareness and talking about it. Because Michael, you opened up saying, is this real? Or are people just, complaining a lot, right? And I think that's a very valid question that a lot of people have around the amount of people talking about having mental health lately. And for me, I tend to fall on the theorem, W.I. Thomas's theorem of that which we believe to be real is real in its consequences. So a student comes to you and is saying, well, I have this and I have that and the third. You may be looking at them thinking, no, I don't think you do. I think you're stressed, or I just think you're, whatever. It doesn't matter. If they think it's real, it's affecting their life like it's real. And so I think that that's something that's kind of coming up for a lot of people right now. Now, if that's not coming up for the folks here today, that's totally legit. Please, feel free to speak up. But that's what I am hearing a bit about.
Carla, how can you inform that from a workplace psychology
Yeah.
perspective in terms of what we're dealing with at work?
So
I mean,
from my, oh, sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to say, and I don't really, like I'm an IO psych person myself, and I think, workplace educational system, they're one and the same. I mean, in many regards. So I think what you have to say is probably very generalizable to
Just a recent engagement we had for consulting involved focus groups and interviews with faculty, staff, and students as well. We did an assessment on mental health and improving, understanding resources for students, for faculty, and the themes that we got, at least from that one. Actually, we've done a few of these, but the common thread is like it's to the point of, is this real or not? It's this, there's a systemic and systems issue, right? So if what we're hearing a lot, at least through my lens, because I'm working with faculty and administrators, is they're feeling their own challenges as well. And so the ability to support students is harder at some points, right? There's systemic issues, there's financial pressures, there's a lot of other, when you think about it as a systems lens, there's external factors impacting institutions, universities today that are very unique and different than it was, decades ago. So I think if we look at it in an integrative way, the interplay of faculty having their own load, supporting student, and then the ability to support each other and hear from that lens, I think is difficult. So there's pressures at the faculty. I want to honor everyone here, that I'm sure everyone's having their own load, but I think it's not just a student, but the interplay of the ability to be able to, support at this time. I think that's where my emphasis is. How can we help faculty to, one, care for themselves, because it's a lot harder to even think about supporting students when we're at empty, right? So that's
I think
what,
that it's totally true
yeah.
because, on good days I'm great, but there's days when it's like, my hair is being pulled out. I have zero resources going into the game. Then when I walk into class and I'm pelted with, I can't do this, I can't do that, etc. And there's moments when I don't know if I've handled it the best way because I myself may have not been in the best place to handle issues. So I do think there's real valid points here that have been addressed so far. Like one, we have to learn to take care of ourselves as faculty members. True. I think Carla, what you're also alluding to is that we may not work in a system that's wholly supportive to us all the time, and we're being asked to do more with less.
Mhm.
And I think there's just a lot of uncertainty in higher ed right now. Yeah, Maria.
So, Michael, respectfully, I disagree with your opening comment to say that I think that institutions are dealing with the same that corporations and private sector are. I've been on
Okay.
both sides of that, and I feel within a unionized environment at the institution level that it's very much an us and them mentality, and we're dealing with students. We've got our own pressures, and everything's being downloaded. But I don't think there's the support systems, certainly not within my institution, because of a HR that's very hands off with faculty because they try and push everything through the unionized collective agreement format. Whereas I think in private sector, you have, there's definitely that pipeline to getting help, I think is, you have that HR department, which is, less hoops to
Right.
jump through to get the help that is needed, I think, in private sector and corporations compared to what we have in institutions. I don't mean
No,
to disagree, but I think there is a very distinct difference.
no, I think your point is excellent. Yes, we work in different systems. My point was the underlying psychology,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
psychological principles, like we're people, different contexts. But what you're saying, yes, unionized
The support systems are vastly different, right?
support systems are vastly different. And it's hard to know what's better because sometimes I think some organizations are very nimble and they know how to deal with it. I think some academic institutions are very good and very flexible. And then at the same time, I think there's some, at least personally, I don't know where I would go for mental health issues on campus. Like it just seems very bureaucratic. And I would not really worry about it from a workplace perspective, Carla. Like I don't think I would go to my employer. Where I'd be closer to go to is ring-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. Hello, Melanie, how are you? And I think that it takes us to a question of, in terms of this taking care of ourselves, how much is it? How much should we be relying on the employer, or should the employer be doing more? Or is it more of a, hey, wait, I'm going to you, Melanie, like kind of on my own accord?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the US, and to a degree elsewhere, a lot of people sometimes end up going through employee assistance programs, EAPs, that are usually a benefit offered through HR, as a way to maybe get into some counseling. Often they offer a certain number of sessions free. Um,
Okay.
and it's important to find out if for your institution, does the EAP report back anything to the institution about your sessions other than the fact that you went and they need to get paid? Because that's an important boundary that you need to know before you disclose something to a therapist, like an EAP therapist. Um, some HRs also through EAP may have a referral service just to help you find a therapist if you wanted to speak to a therapist on your own. Most health insurance plans cover therapy to some degree. Most all therapists will take out of pocket. Um, and so, I I think it's kind of comfort level of the faculty member. Do I want to use EAP and save some money, but not be sure about that boundary? Or do I just want to find someone on my own? I personally think word of mouth is often a really good way to find a therapist. So asking people you trust in your life, whether they're colleagues or friends or family members, if they know of any good therapists or organizations, you can also ask your doctor. Your primary care provider should have a list of people that they can refer you to. I think in addition to that, though, is how are you creating social support for yourself, especially in the workplace where you have other people you can like peer-based talk to for support. So I'm thinking about, a situation where maybe there's something happening institutionally where faculty could really use a chance to talk to each other in an informal way that's not including administration, but feels safe, right? So do you all go out to the pub? Do you all get together at somebody's house? You know, maybe formalizing that a little bit, even if it's like under the table, to give yourself some social support in that way with people who get it and people you trust.
I think, Carla, there's probably a good segue to the work that you do there.
Yeah.
Wow. Either formal or informal support networks.
Yeah, a lot of the work we're doing is to create support, so accountability at the leadership level for supporting, for example, the faculty. But beyond that, even just understanding resources. So what we're finding is um, whether it's an organization or institution, a local college, like many staff and faculty don't even know what they have beyond just EAP. And if they're in a situation where they're struggling silently, don't have the psychological safety with their peers, and just others in the institution, it's scary to ask, like, where do I get it? I'm struggling. How to get that information? So when we do our assessments, oftentimes, clients are coming to us asking, well, what should we add to support? That's like, let's outsource mental health. Like, what else can we add to the mix, right? Meditation apps, resources. And what we find is
Mhm.
it's not a lack of services or offerings, it's a lack of information and access. And also, some of these in situations there's like on-site support, on-site health coaching, on-site nutritionists or workshops, but they're not being timed at a time where people can attend them, right? So even just barriers to access, we find. But a lot of the work we're doing is creating mental health awareness training, whether it's faculty, administrators, on how do you spot, how do you start to notice when human beings, right, regardless of what
Mhm.
their role is, are struggling. And how do you have those conversations? What support can you provide? Here are resources, listening empathetically. I mean, skills, like human skills that we're not often taught in a formal sense, right? And just giving people permission to be human is a big theme of like our whole pitch is we rehumanize workplaces, right? Like that's the goal, is to bring back the human in the experience. So I think that, beyond offerings and EAPs, which to Melanie's point, like the data shows when we see utilization reports, we hear a lot of need, but low utilization, right? Low trust. So that tells me there's a lack of trust in this system. And how do we increase that, right? So it's not the lack of resource, it's what's the true underlying cause, right? And that's where I get curious, and that's where we start digging.
So, thank you. So, I want to pivot to go back to the classroom experience because most of us are teachers, professors, and that's our sphere of influence. So the best part about my week thus far was doing a lot of work from home. We had a snow day. I'm still on sabbatical. Just want to sit here in front of the tree, drinking my coffee, doing work. But what I've been doing, I've had this downtime to work on my class prep for the spring. And there's a lot of, think about the design of class and kind of the whole student experience. As I go into the new semester, what sort of things should I consider in terms of class design, both from the technical aspect and maybe from the social aspect? Things that I could do and how I set up the whole architecture for the class, as well as think about how I set up the social systems in the class. Does that make sense where I'm going with that? It's beyond the syllabus. It's more thinking, no, do I do group work? Do I have students work in groups? Do I do daily check-ins with students? How do I manage the amount of work? Any variety of things I would be curious to hear, like kind of some best practices or key things for us to consider in our classroom design.
Yeah, I don't know if Anna Maria is still on, but I know that they've told me that one thing they do in their classes is they'll start the class by asking, like for a positive thing, like what's a good thing that happened to you this week, similar to how y'all opened this session today. And the students actually really like it. And it's a really positive way to, have a little bit of getting people talking some at the start of class while you're waiting for everybody to show up. But it's positive, but it's also not like Pollyanna, it's not like pretending to be happy, but asking something that's more than like, how are you doing? Right? Because everybody's gonna be like, fine, you know. Um, I also think that in thinking about class design, there's so much that's online now, whether your class is online, whether your assignments are all online, something like that. I actually think people are really pining for person-to-person connection. I hear that in all areas of therapeutic work right now. And I work full time online, so like I am not a great person to, like I do everything on Zoom basically. And so I get that I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth, but that person to person connection in the classroom, whether it's on Zoom, if it's a fully online class, or there's more to do together, I think might be quite useful because one of the
So
biggest
Melanie,
mental
if I can hop in for a half sec. So I'll design classes around groups, for example. So I'll have my students sitting in pods.
Mhm,
So I think that will start to at least form those social connections. And
mhm.
other small things, I don't do the daily check-ins. That's something I might do. I know Sydney, you've done that before. Go around and like, how are we doing today? And I hear that a lot of people do have some success with that. What I'll do is sometimes I'll kill 10 minutes and have them play Uno together or Jenga. And it could be somewhat related to the course material, or it could just be for fun's sake. Because to get them to connect with one another and off of their texting machines, so where they're actually having conversations of sorts. So I do believe that if we can somewhat build in the social elements. Now, Carla, I'll have my colleagues, I'll tell them that I do this stuff. Oh, we're playing Uno, we're playing Jenga. I'll have them, sometimes I'll say, go for a walk for 5 minutes, go play in traffic. Here's a discussion question, go talk, go play. A lot of my colleagues roll their eyes and say, there goes Michael again. It's all fun and games. Uh, Not real substance there. Agree, disagree, thoughts on the matter.
Well, before I respond to that, I'm curious, Michael, what have you noticed as far as the
Oh,
impact and outcome of that?
I think it really does a difference. I mean, I think it makes a difference. I think my students look forward to coming to class. I think they enjoy their peers more so than they enjoy me, and that's okay. Before, when I was a younger professor, it's like, oh, please love me. I'm the professor. It's like, you know what? Don't need to be your friend anymore. What you guys need to be doing is connecting amongst each other, building personal relationships, and learning from one another. So I'll always fight to be in a classroom where I can have pods because it's like you need to be facing each other to have a conversation, to talk. And anecdotally, what I notice too is when I walk past many other classrooms, students are on their phones. They're not engaged with one another. When they're in my classrooms, I'm not saying this is a miracle solution, but uh, they're talking more, they're laughing more. But it takes a lot of intentional effort. And like where I struggle is it takes a lot of work to do this. It's not just come in and drone on for 75 minutes. And sometimes I'm wondering, is this really worth it?
Yeah.
Even though I do know it's worth it. It's
I think you know it's worth it because you're noticing, just the felt experience of being in there, whether you have, data to support that or not. I think you intuitively can feel that. When you mentioned that, I went back to just the psych safety piece, right? And that when you're an instructor or a faculty member, I think number one for any relationship is trust. And so when you allowed the space to have fun, when you yourself are participating in the fun, now I feel like you're a human, right? You're not a peer, right? You're not this person I can't access that I might be intimidated with because of your amazing, impressive resume, right? Now you're Michael and you laugh too, and I can connect with you. And I think that depositing is what I often find missing today because the pressures of work and load and everything else takes priority, right? Relationships have become more transactional than transformational. And that I don't have
Mhm.
data to this. This is just observation. I'm sure there might be some correlation or causation to the what we're seeing as mental health challenges increasing. So the very strategy that you have that fits who you are. I almost think like you also have to be authentic to what's your style. Like I'm
Mhm.
not really a fun kind of person. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have
yeah,
my
I
own different
agree on
vibe.
that one.
Yeah.
Like, follow your personality. You can't be someone you're not. I do part of what I do because it's inherently a part of me. Like, I like to have a little bit of fun. I like social aspects, that's who I am. And it may not fit everybody's style, but still what I like to do, Carla and Melanie and everybody, is just like encourage other instructors. Like, you don't have to be me, but do something, because I think it's not about declarative knowledge today in the classroom. I mean, if people wanted simple information, we go to Chat GPT. I mean, come on, let's face reality. Google, Chat GPT. The classroom experience, in my opinion, is about higher level thinking now and making some connections and taking it to a different level.
Yeah. And last thing I'll note there is I think that the willingness to also be vulnerable in a appropriate level, right? Like, so for example, right, this is we find that whether you're a leader in the context of an organization or institution, or a leader in the community, or a parent, right, just being able to show humanness is critical. And I think that opens up the door for a student to say, I saw the imperfection in that person. I actually respect this person more. Um, and it
Mhm.
could be, whoops, made a mistake, folks, right? And how you handle mistakes. And we're all human, right? Even in our best days, we can accidentally, send the wrong assignment, or, say something that we can then come back to and say, that moment, I just want to own that, right? And I think those courageous opportunities are going to the depositing in those relationships and the respect you gain from being able to put yourself out there, can really, reward you in the end, and also create, again, going back to psych safety, a more psychologically safe experience for everyone. So it does take, and it's hard. I mean, I think if it's a lot of self-awareness too, and your own safety and feeling safe with your students. So I think it depends. It's not as easy as I'm saying, but it can make a big difference, I've seen.
Thank you. And I'd like to focus now on when problems arise or when we notice an issue. Because I think partly the conversation to date or thus far has been, let's create these safe environments where, we're supporting positive mental health, where we are supporting connections. But what about, okay, now some problems, there's something going on with these students. Either as a whole, there's something going on, or I have a particular student issue. Now, I know that every institution has probably certain protocol. Like, we're supposed to hand out a certain folder. I mean, there's certain things that we're supposed to do. But bureaucracy aside and organizational nuances aside, what's a good human-centered way to approach the issue before going too technical and too bureaucratic?
So this, you mean a problem has arisen, like a student has come to you as their instructor with a problem that's clearly not about the class per se, but about their own mental health?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I think there's a number of ways to handle it. I think, you know, as Carla said, you have to be who you are. Like you have to be authentic to
Mhm.
who you are in that response. So if you're a person who it tends to be very guarded and very just only business, then you can stay that way in that mode. And you could say, I'm so sorry to hear this is happening to you, and immediately kind of start a referral process to whatever the counseling referral process on campus is for students, because most schools now have student counseling services that faculty can support a student getting connected to. Now, do faculty know that those exist? Not often, but that's something that you can find on your website or ask, your mentors or whoever, like, where do I find this pathway? If you're somebody who is more outgoing, more connected to your students, more vulnerable with your students, you might be want to have like an open conversation with them where they tell you more details and such. The challenge there is that they may be looking to you for all kinds of support or answers that you may not feel comfortable or be qualified to really give them, right? So
Right,
if
right,
you
right.
go down the path of, oh, tell me what's going on, and they very quickly land on, well, I had all these pills out last night and I was going to kill myself, like you have gone into a territory that you may not have wanted to be in. So it's like
Mhm.
that's where I think it can get kind of sticky pretty quickly. So I think there's a lot of value in learning to recognize the distress through things like the mental health trainings that Carla was talking about, like mental health first aid, those are the words, um,
Mhm.
that then give you like, oh, I recognize these things. This means somebody might need some support. So you can, instead of trying to be the detective yourself and figure out what's going on, you're seeing right away this person needs to get to some support if they're open to it. The challenge is that not all students are open to it. And so you have to be willing to hold the boundary of not trying to be somebody's therapist or savior,
Right.
even if they're saying, but you're the only one I can talk to. And that's when you have to be willing to hold what your boundary is around how far you'll go with the student.
Now we have 10 minutes left of the Rise and Grind. And for this last part, I'd like for this to be a little bit interactive. I'd like to hear from the crowd of any strategies that they use on a day-to-day basis, however silly they might be, however quirky they might be, um, to support mental health and well-being. I've given a few, we've heard, a few strategies around, but I think what's great about groups like this is we can have some collective understanding and share best practices. And while we're all thinking, if Melanie or Carla, if you have any ideas to get the ball rolling.
Mike, I gotta go, and I just wrote something in the chat. Um, you know, with the social media and everything, what I find that helps them get by through their day is just to be a little entertaining in class. And I do some things that a lot of people think are wild and crazy. So I'm probably you're probably the younger version of me, Mike. That's what I suspect. And
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's really essential with this group because we all have to realize, they're all so indoctrinated with tick schlock, as I call it in Disgrace Book, that the lady across the aisle here from me is laughing at
Mhm.
my terms. Um, that's just a comment, I guess. We do have a lot of services. They do suicide training, which we have to do once a year on our campus. There are places for faculty to go, and I've had some issues with the administration, which probably are not so psychological, but they're a little stressful. But when you go to the administration, it helps if they can at least point you in the right directions for things. And they
Mhm.
do try to do that with the students as well by having, a very open place where the students can go to try to get help. And I have, I just this semester I queried a student, about how they were feeling, and that particular student was already getting help. So, you know, it's good to hear those things. So anyway, those are my comments. Happy holidays to everyone,
Happy
and
holidays, Dean. Thanks for joining. Thanks for your
that's my
comments.
plane. So I'm going to get out of here. All right, take
Safe
care, everyone.
travels. Safe
Thank you.
travels.
Thank you. You too. Have a great holiday season, everyone.
Thank you. Maureen.
So mine is sort of a comment and a question at the same time. I try to, especially in the first week of classes, present myself as very approachable, talk about my policies in a way that says I recognize we all have things that pop up in our lives, mental health or otherwise. So I try to explain my policies and my approach to class in that context. But sometimes I worry that for students who do experience mental health issues, that giving them too much leeway maybe isn't as helpful as I think it is. and creating too many exceptions may not be as helpful. And so I struggle with, and then, I'm grateful when a student comes to me because they feel comfortable. And I always tell them, you don't have to tell me what's going on in your life, but just tell me that something's going on in your life. And if I can
Mhm.
help, or how we can reorganize things for you. But I do often wonder if that is in fact helpful, and if, the extending deadlines and making exceptions is actually helpful, or if it really isn't as helpful as I think it is.
Screen
So,
has changed. So
so what's interesting, Maureen, is that I almost hear that you have an idea of the answer in your question, right? So it sounds to me like you must have had some experiences where you did it, and in the end, you're like, I don't actually think that was helpful. Is
Yeah,
that,
that like the open-endedness created more stress for them when I was trying to relieve their anxiety or stress, or give them, like take a little bit of the pressure off.
yeah. So I think there's a couple things I would encourage you to think about with this, or anyone. It would be, does the student have, are they connected to like the Students for Disability Services or whatever office would oversee someone who has a diagnosis and needs more support? Not everybody with mental health issues will go register with that office, but most places, if you've got a diagnosis, even something as simple as anxiety, can go there, and then they can provide the literal accommodations that do provide the structure and not as open-ended. I know that loads of students don't have that and they come to you anyway. I think you really have to kind of balance what level of, like, balance the structure versus the openness, right? And if you're someone who you value structure, then you need to keep some structure. And
Mhm.
and it can be hard because students may
See,
push back
Melanie,
on that.
see, I'm opposite to Maureen in a way. So my
Mm,
mother gave me teaching advice when I was young. She had a friend, Nancy Myrtle, who taught middle school. Nancy Myrtle's philosophy was come in strong, firm, then lighten up afterwards. Because if you're too open and flexible in the beginning, they're just going to smell blood and they are going to eat you alive. So that was kind of my upbringing of sorts. I balance it with fun, but now I'm starting to be a little more nurturing, but I don't want it to creep too far into the, oh my gosh, now I have to accommodate everything.
mhm.
I'm wondering, yeah, Ruth.
Say I'm fortunate I have small classes at the community college, at least for right now. Hopefully that's going to grow. But for right now, my classes are small, so students gravitate to like, sharing their own cell phone numbers. And so I just especially when they're struggling with something, that having those little pockets of friend groups, I just encourage them to reach out to the ones that are not necessarily in their friend group, the one or two outliers, in order for them to support, because that might be the one who actually really does need the help. Um,
Mhm.
but I don't know how everyone, whether it be on Slack or another version that you might use, Teams, within your students, and I don't know if anyone else does that with their student population. And they help self-govern each other. They can be pretty harsh. You know what I mean? Like, no, don't take that from even another professor, or no, you need to go and advocate for yourself. Or I hear them, before class or after class as they're talking to each other. So I just felt that's another layer that's not something that I did, but just happened
Mhm.
naturally through my group activities, like we all do with the students. So,
I like the self-governing aspect of that it's them helping
Mhm.
each other and you're not involved,
yeah.
because, oh, look, they're having to really adult for themselves with each other, and there's not the person in charge taking care of them.
Donna A., good morning. I want to know what you do. Like, just one, as we wrap things up, you're an experienced instructor.
You're so kind.
You you have I've seen you present. I think you have a good style about you. I would like to know how you translate some of that into the classroom from a mental health standpoint. Like what you might do.
We're fortunate at Stockton, so we have a ton of services, outreach, offices, connection forms, opportunities to. So that not only it's push and it's pull. So they pull from us constantly. Where are your students? Do you have any concerns? Here's a link to a form. Let us know. So it's checks upon checks because we just are in this space, and I guess everybody is, where we can't really afford to lose not one student. Not one student. And so there's this safety net that we have created
Mhm.
to run interference and attempt to help. I mean, we've amped up all of our mental health services, counseling, whether it be in person, online, group, whatever the case may be. So with that foundation, we are pretty clear with that there are all types of services out there. But I don't think my classes are as small as Ruth's, but I mean we're capped at 35. So my largest class, that would be my largest class, which is nice. But I think, the students in our major, for at least at Stockton, are pretty honest, are pretty outgoing. We're very fortunate in those things. But listen, we have the balance is trying to teach everyone at the same level when everyone's got a
Mhm.
million issues, right? So I've got
Right.
Rhodes Scholars and I've got like 5 IEPs in my class of students that have a myriad of issues between needing note takers and needing quiet time and may not be able to sit for 2 hours. Like we have classes that are 2 hour blocks. So you'll get things like that. I have one student in her, I keep
So
calling
how
her.
do you keep your hair from going gray?
Right, right. Well, I diet. I mean, that's what I do. Yeah.
So,
So anyway, I'm probably babbling on, but the point is there has to be multiple methods of engagement, multiple methods of assessment, multiple methods of communication. I call it a three-ring circus. I've been saying that for years. If you're not there, kind of, you've used the word edutainment, right? Like
yeah,
we're
yeah.
entertaining, but we're communicating, and we're kind of helping. We do a lot of experiential learning with our students. I feel like that helps because I feel like if they're moving and engaging, they are more engaged. The sitting and talking just really doesn't work anymore. And they're all looking for online. And we're resistant at Stockton about that. So I mean, I don't know if that answers your question, but it's a constant. And I loved your question. Like, as I think about spring, what should I be thinking about? I loved the
Mhm.
question because what should we be thinking about? Because it's different every single time.
And just one thing that I've done is I add slack time into my schedule because I never know what's going to happen. And just add a little bit of time because some days they need to be like little mental health wellness days. And I pay attention to the emotional energy of the semester, like what's going on here. And I'll include a day or two. It's like, okay, it's going to be a game day. It doesn't, it's going to have some learning to it, but you know what? This is where they're at emotionally. So I'll include some like fun days as well as just some slack days where it's like, you know what? We may all need a day off. Uh, so,
I hear you. It's reading the room. You walk in and be like, all right, like you can read the room. What's up? Maybe we need to all change our seats, our desks. Maybe we need to be in a
mhm.
circle and not straight in front of the class. Maybe you need an interactive activity and not just a lecture today. Like it is game time decision often when you just walk in and kind of get a pulse on what's going on.
And I think as we wrap up the rise and grind, like what I got out of it myself is continue to focus on the human aspect of the class. Like have that as something that you're thinking about in your course design. Clearly, we have to be focusing on knowledge and skill acquisition. That's why we're here. But we have emotional beings in the classroom and think about how we can support them in a meaningful way. All righty, Rue, Melanie, parting thoughts before you can spirit away and we start the meeting.
I think I like your final thoughts there on humanness, and I would just say remember to include yourself and your colleagues in the humanness and not just the students.
Thank you so much. And Carla, some final thoughts before you guys can spirit away.
I'm going with that a humanized learning environment, including yourself and self-compassion, is a wellness intervention in itself.
Mhm.
And I'd like to thank you both for doing this because you don't know me from Adam, heretofore. And showing up on a Friday morning, Friday afternoon, we have a ton of commitments. So I acknowledge and I honor the time that you've taken just to share some insights. And I hope that the rest of us in the room, that we just consider mental health just a smidge more based on what we've shared today. So thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you. Take
Thank
care,
you so
everyone.
much.
Appreciate you all.
Thank you.